Welcome to episode 157 of Timm Talk, the podcast about the DC animated universe, co-created by Bruce Timm. I'm Chris Lord.
I'm Cameron Dexter.
And we're back with more Static Shock this week. A couple good crossover episodes. We got some Out of Africa with the return of Anansi the Spider, and we got, of course, a great episode with Green Lantern. Good stuff to get to. But first, a little bit of news.
We have a lot of news, I feel like. We finally hit our news stride.
Yeah, it's almost like the industry is reopening and there's actual shit to talk about now.
Yeah.
So I guess let's start out with we have actual Batman news, which we haven't had in quite a long time.
We do.
This is in the earliest of stages, but it's been announced that on HBO Max there is going to be a spin-off of the yet to be finished / released The Batman, Matt Reeves film. And it's going to be the writer from Boardwalk Empire, Terrence Winter, is going to be like showrunning the thing, and it's going to be possibly a prequel, but regardless, it's going to be set in the world of Gotham as established in Matt Reeves' film, focusing on Jeffrey Wright's Commissioner Gordon. Which this all sounds great. This all just sounds like Gotham.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they could do, which I think would be a nice exploration, is give us year one from Gordon's perspective.
Oh, that could be cool.
So you're not going pre-Batman, because then that's dumb.
Yeah, because if you go pre-Batman,
don't need to see all the kid villains. This isn't fucking Baby Looney Tunes. What am I saying? Baby Looney Tunes is a classic.
Of course it was. I mean, actually, yeah, I like that idea. I think it's the only way to do this and make it make sense.
Yeah, you have it where it's the police perspective on the early days of Batman. Yeah. Because like that must be crazy.
Yeah, actually, because that would allow them to sort of write around the absence of Batman while still making him a central figure. Because I feel like that's the problem with every single Batman live action show, save the 60s one, is that they have to write around the fact that Batman's not there.
Yeah. And in the year one, we already have a good foundation for Gordon. You know, he just moved to Gotham. He's trying to get rid of corruption inside the police department.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of hates him for it. You know, you can have him when he like first teams up with Bullock. Mm-hmm. And Bullock is just this like pompous asshole.
I mean, now we're definitely back into Gotham territory.
Yeah.
But no, I think that would make sense. And like, I think that's a good way to have maybe like a brief cameo appearance. Cause I feel like that's ultimately what's going to come down to is like, to what degree are they able and willing to try and get Robert Pattinson in as like in a cameo appearance?
Yeah. I mean, you can honestly just do it Supergirl style where like you don't see him in the suit, but it's kind of, Gordon's first case. And you just see Batman in like his shirt wrapped around his head, like helping people out of a fire.
Mm-hmm. Is his shirt wrapped around his head?
Yeah, you can. Make
Is that what the early Batman costume was?
No, but I mean,
not
like,
a balaclava, but he just like pulled his shirt up over his face.
Yeah, it's the poor man's mask.
He's just trying to show off all that work he's been doing to get in shape. That's ultimately what it came down to.
I mean, yeah, this is a 25-year-old Bruce Wayne.
I mean, except for the fact that Robert Pattinson is mid-30s now at this point.
That's fine.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that's like the only way to do it, because otherwise it's just going to be a rehash of Gotham. I mean, I'm excited for that movie.
But at the same time, Gotham was unfortunately a very successful series.
Yeah, bafflingly so. But
with HBO Max dropping as much money as they did on Big Bang, you know they're just there chasing.
Yeah.
You know, chasing bandwagons.
It definitely feels like this was not an organic decision that came from like the creatives of the movie being like, hey, like maybe there's an interesting story to be told here. This was definitely like, we are desperate for content. Can you please give us anything to work with?
Oh, so some other news I just remembered that's parallel to this. While we're getting that going to HBO Max, it was announced this week that Stargirl for season 2 is moving from DCU to WB.
CW.
Yeah, CW.
Yeah.
No, WB. They're bringing it back.
They're bringing it back, finally. Is what we've always been demanding. Yeah, I saw that. I mean, you've been watching the show. it feels like it would be totally at home on the CW.
Absolutely. Honestly, it might be too young for CW.
Oh,
The
is there?
characters, because other characters are high schoolers.
But are they like actual high school age high schoolers versus like 35-year-old high schoolers in the typical
Yeah,
vein
they're
of?
closer. I would say they're like 18 to 24 range high schoolers.
Oh, well, that's perfectly reasonable to be playing like 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
Um, yeah, so another big hit to DCU.
At this point, I care about two things off of three things off of the DCU. One is finding a home for all the DCAU content,
Hmm.
which I imagine will probably just be going on HBO Max. I care about the continuation of the Harley Quinn animated series, which I continue to love. I think it's the best thing they've put out, and I really hope that we get more of it. And again, that'll probably end up on HBO Max. And then
Yeah.
the last thing I care about is their comics library. Like, I still maintain that's the best thing about that site because their movie selection is pretty abysmal, actually. I was looking at it the other day, and there's almost nothing. It seems like everything they had on there, they've subsequently pulled.
Yeah, which is crazy because I remember when it first launched and we praised it for having everything.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't have like the Dark Knight trilogy, which was kind of be expected because that's still a huge, sale item for Warner Brothers, but it had basically everything else. And it seems like all those are gone. There's very few of the animated movies anymore. It still has most of the cartoons and like old shows, I think, which is good. But I mean, I'm pretty sure it has all comics except for stuff published within the last year. And I've actually been catching up on some comics, which I'll probably do as a plug once I've finished them. Um, but like it's great for that. Like the interface isn't spectacular. It's a little bit glitchy and problematic sometimes, but I mean for having the content there and for the price, it's pretty damn good. So as long as they keep those things, then it's sad to see it go, but I guess it makes sense. But I don't know if they're going to then put money into backing a comics platform the way that Marvel
Yeah.
has, which is a shame.
Yeah, and connected to that, I think HBO Max's animation library is incredibly lackluster right now.
Okay.
Like their Cartoon Network tab, I think it's just like 7 shows.
Oh, they can do better than that.
Yeah, and they're like most of them kind of make sense. You have your Adventure Time, you have your Dexter's Lab. But yeah, I definitely think that HBO Max could benefit from absorbing all of the animated content from DCU.
Yeah.
And especially getting Harley Quinn, I think would be a huge win.
It's a great show. It's legitimately
Yeah.
like really, really great. Yeah, so I hope it continues. But that definitely feels like another cut to DCU leading
Yeah.
towards its inevitable cancellation.
Yeah, because they cut DC Daily. The last episode was last week.
Yeah.
And I don't think either of us ever watched it, but we had a friend of the podcast was
Yeah.
on it. Hector was one of the main hosts.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's a slow burn. You can see the Vikings slowly pushing it out to sea as they're about to light their arrows.
Priming the arrows.
Yes.
Oh god. Well, hopefully the good content finds a home somewhere else, and hopefully HBO Max gets their shit together.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, there was an announcement this week, and I immediately thought of you when I saw it, which was that we're getting a Ready Player 2.
We are getting a Ready Player 2. I'm so pumped.
I think it's you and Ernest Cline are the two people that are very excited for Ready Player 2.
Yep. Just give me all the nostalgia and give me all of the like small references.
Yeah. The thing is I honestly cannot tell you if that was a good book or not. Like I remember enjoying reading it, and I generally tend to like to read just like fun plot driven books that are a nice distraction. And I enjoyed reading it, but also I feel like there's so much like kind of backlash against it because it was just a series of non sequitur references, more or less.
Yeah, it was like an 80s infomercial personified.
Yeah. Like I feel like I don't know, in my mind to some degree that there's like seems to be some bleed over between The Martian and Ready Player One. I don't know if it's just because like they both came from writers like pre-existing careers. I don't know why in my mind those two are kind of connected, but like I feel like The Martian at least was delivering something kind of unique in it being like very grounded and technical based.
Hmm.
Whereas, yeah, Ready Player One just felt like I don't know if there's actually that much content or originality in there. It's mostly just like here's all these things you know and love, remember. And to be fair, I enjoyed that as I also really enjoyed the movie, which is the exact same thing. But do we really need a follow up story? I feel like that book had a pretty nice conclusion to it.
Yeah, he turned off the internet. That was the ending. Oh, I don't know where they're gonna go. Obviously,
Yeah,
turning it back on.
I guess they turn it back on. Maybe you know what it's going to be? Maybe a global pandemic hits and everyone has to stay at home, and so they have no choice but to go back to the Oasis.
Yeah. I mean, you have uh, the fear that a lot of like current day people have of like when you have, because my idea is like, oh, they'll just go to like the next generation of entertainment. But when they're in this eternal loop, you have that fear that everyone has now of like, if we just repeat what we've already seen, what are we like? What do we have to look forward to 20 years from now
Yeah.
when we're just remaking all the 80s and 90s content?
Yeah, exactly. What's going to happen in 20 years time? Are we going to get remakes of, for some reason, High School Musical was the first thing that came to mind.
Yes, we will, because we just did, and it was great.
See, that's the thing. We've already hit the reboot button on that.
Yes, and it was wonderful.
Well,
And I consistently think about rewatching that series because it was so good.
I mean, to be fair, I have heard good things. I'm just not going to watch it.
That's fair. I don't think it's for you, and that's totally fine because it's for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I know you'll end up listening to it. I'll probably end up reading it.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity. But did you ever read Armada, which was his second book?
Mm-hmm.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was The Last Starfighter.
Okay. See, yeah, it's like.
I mean, it was like half Last Starfighter, half Ender's Game, which is the same story.
This is exactly. More fantastic original content. Well, actually, I feel like this whole week was a bunch of stuff that must have gotten you very excited because there's also rumors about a Tron 3 finally happening.
Yes. So the reason there were rumors about the Tron 3 is because Disney's announcement was, if there is a Tron 3, we can confirm that Daft Punk will be connected to it.
Oh my God, that's like
Which I think is the funniest way to announce a film.
That's like an LSAT level if-then question right there.
Yeah.
If we do this, we will have Daft Punk. Will we do this? I don't know. But if we do, don't worry, everyone. We'll have Daft Punk.
And like that's on their part of getting like publicity. That's the smartest way to do it because people care way more about a new Daft Punk album than they do a Tron movie.
I mean, I always think about Tron Legacy as being a 2-hour-long Daft Punk music video. And
not to be confused with Interstellar 5555, which is a 2-hour Daft Punk music video.
Well aware. Because look, I like that movie. I rewatched it not too long ago. It's fun. It's a little bit derivative, but it's pretty fun. It looks gorgeous, and that soundtrack from Daft Punk is incredible. Because I think most people just think about Derezzed, which was like, you know, the most Daft Punky song of all of it, was a big part of the marketing push. But like the rest of that soundtrack is actually like really like operatic and intense and atmospheric and really good.
It's what got me into scores.
Yeah, it's a really great score. So like, look, I'm totally down for this. I think there's more story to be told. I mean, it's interesting that we're doing this 10 years later. And I think
the other one was 34 years later.
Well, true. But like, I feel like the story they were setting up at the end of Tron Legacy was one that would maybe happen more immediately, right? Like the idea that Korra is now out in the real world, like that seemed like something that would have like sort of immediate repercussions, not like repercussions a decade later on. And I feel like sometimes the challenge of doing these long delayed sequels is then you have to sort of justify in universe why so much time has passed. And that kind of just drags at the storytelling a little bit and basically just makes it like yet another soft reboot. I hope that we get Garrett Hedlund and especially Olivia Wilde back. I mean, Olivia Wilde is, I think, as big as she's ever been. But would she do this? I don't know. I feel like her talents are better used as a director, given that you and I are like the biggest Booksmart champions of the planet, which is saying something, considering how much people love that movie. The rumor right now is that I guess Jared Leto's attached. I'm like, why?
Great. So they're taking the worst part of Blade Runner 2049 and adapting it into Tron. So here's my fear with Tron 3, because I'm going to see it regardless.
Well, obviously.
I love that movie. But in the past 10 years, since the last Tron was December 10th, 2010, I don't think Disney has put out a successful live-action film since then, not counting the live-action remakes.
Right.
So I have a list here of the major live-action films that have come out in the past 10 years.
Okay.
Including Artemis Fowl, because it was supposed to be theatric. Had that. We had Nutcracker, which didn't do well.
Nope.
Wrinkle in Time didn't do well. Tomorrowland, God, it still hurts that didn't do well.
Because it's not good.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Lone Ranger, Oz the Great and Powerful, John Carter, BFG, the two Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, and On Stranger Tides, Into the Woods, and Saving Mr. Banks. Which I don't even want to put Saving Mr. Banks with these, because that's such a different movie. And all of these are very expensive movies and didn't make any money. John Carter is notorious for being one of the biggest box office failures ever. Oz the Great and Powerful is one of the biggest box office failures ever.
That's
Lone Ranger, Tomorrowland.
Yeah, I mean, that's my point, is that they know it makes money, which is why they only now invest in the remakes, because none of the other ones did it. And I think there's not a good creative force in that department, clearly. It's like we've seen how critical it is to have like really good in-house creatives, through Pixar and Disney Animation, and having people shepherd that department and really demand high creative quality is critical. Maybe that person just doesn't exist, unfortunately, in the live action
and there
department.
could be the idea that like a lot of that talent was diverted to Marvel, because you can kind of see like those movies ended once they bought Marvel. Yeah.
And that's also part of it too, is probably like the real good talent, and the focus probably just shifted towards like Marvel and Star Wars more. I think Marvel than Star Wars, which also kind of suffers from the same problem. But I just don't know if I think the passion is there from the filmmaking perspective, but from the studio, I just don't know if they are getting the kind of backing and support they need to make these really good. I mean, because they get really talented filmmakers. I mean, like Ava DuVernay is incredible, but I never bothered seeing A Wrinkle in Time because I heard awful, and also it's a terrible fucking book.
Hey, I love the book.
You can at me.
I actually read that book.
You can come at me. I don't care. I read it and I was like, this is garbage. Like I hope Tron 3 happens, and I hope it's good. I hope they get Joseph Kosinski, the director, back. I thought he did a great job. That movie is just it is a delight for the eyes at the end of the day.
So kind of on that point, if we can get a decent segue out of this, while all this stuff has been going on, Comic-Con has been starting to make their big announcements, because that's happening in 2 weeks. And this week they announced their schedule, which is usually like the most exciting week for me. Like this is like a week of Christmas Eve for me in past years, of when I get to see what everything that's coming to the convention. One of the best panels they've announced so far is on Friday. There's a panel where it's just a one-on-one with Charlize Theron, not a one-on-one, an audience one-on-one with Charlize Theron, called The Evolution of a Badass, an Action Hero Careers Retrospective.
Love it.
Which is great, because that's also what we talked about before on the podcast, about the Charlize Theron streaming service.
I'd pay for it.
Yeah. So we're going to try and jump in and pitch her that idea.
Exactly. I was looking through this list here. It's pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, this year, without the big hitters, it's definitely interesting to see how different the content is. On the plus side, I will say there is a much bigger push for diversity panels, which I think is awesome.
Which is good.
I have 2 or 3 kind of on my. I made a list on the side, 2 or 3 that I'm really interested in listening to. They always have a panel about Afrofuturism, which I've never been able to get into, and so I'm excited to actually just like listen to that one. But yeah, there's not a lot of studio presence in here. We talked about on the side. there's really only 2 studios that I've noticed that actually are using Comic-Con this year. One being HBO Max, which I think is very smart of them. They're using this as a way to announce all their original content coming out in the next year.
To try and convince people they should sign up for their service.
Yes. And they definitely need to start winning over people. I mean, if you scroll through the list, there's probably 3 HBO panels a day.
Yeah.
And so this is their convention to kind of mess up.
Yeah, I mean, because Marvel basically has no presence, or Disney has no presence, and by extension, like Marvel and Star Wars aren't really there in any sort of substantial capacity. Outside of HBO Max, DC and Warner Brothers seems to be holding on to everything for their own DC event that's happening later on in the year. And I don't know, I mean, it's interesting, like, because we were talking about this beforehand, that you and I looked at this list and had very different reactions. Like, my reaction was looking at this and going, there's nothing here that I care enough to like stop and go and watch, like to go out of my way to like log on and go and do this. Like there's no panels that I would rather watch than say like sit outside and read my book. And because I'm not there, it's not like I already have like an investment in my time to make good use of it. Like if you're at the convention, you're like, okay, I want to like get as much out of it as possible. Like these are the things I'm super excited about. Let's go check this out. Whereas now I'm like, I don't care about any of this stuff enough to do it. But you could have had the opposite problem looking at this list.
So when you go to Comic-Con, like especially the big one, your time is so precious that you have to 100% commit to everything you're going to, especially with how big the lines are.
Yeah.
You know, there's always a 50-50 chance you're not even going to get in, but you have to commit or you're not going to be able to do anything. And so looking at this list, I was excited because there's a bunch of panels that I've always wanted to check out over the past years. And now I actually have a chance of just like, they're all going to be online. They're all going to be through YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume they're going to just live there, you know, indefinitely or, you know, for a couple months. And so there's no urgency to like stop what I'm doing and look at a panel. Like I can kind of queue it up in a tab and then pause it until I have kind of 20 or 30 minutes of free time.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that has always piqued my interest that I've never been able to go to. Like Cartoon Voices is a panel that's almost impossible to get into now, where it's just all the voice actors hanging out and just like improvising together. There is one Batman panel, which is a tribute to Dennis O'Neil.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
There's a Bill and Ted panel that I'm excited for. There's one is so bizarre, but I'm so just offhandedly fascinated by it because I've never seen it at Comic-Con before. And the panel is Mexican Lucha Libre, History, Tradition, and Legacy.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And I'm like, why not? Why not just check that out?
I mean,
There's like crafting world. There's a lot of like writing panels, which I think are super interesting. It's like, how do you craft a world in comics? How do you go from like publishing to pitching to series? The art of film and TV posters. You know, there's all these like sub panels that don't get a lot of attention that I'm pretty interested in now.
And this is giving me a very interesting year as an experiment, right? Because there's, I think, 2 big things happening here, and obviously they're related. But one is that it's all happening virtually rather than in person, for obvious reason. The other thing too is that there is a vacuum left behind by the absence of the major hitters, right? You know, it's
absolutely.
You know, the major studios aren't putting a lot of effort into this, but in particular, you know, at the end of the day, we're talking Disney/Marvel and Warner Brothers/DC aren't really here. And I think in their absence, it leaves room for the possibility, as to your point, of other smaller projects and more niche panels to happen. And because it's all happening online, access to these things is going to be greater than it used to be.
Yeah.
And that is...
I mean, they basically just cut off Hall H and Ballroom 20, and we're left with everything in between.
And I think there is something interesting there. Like, in a weird way, despite the unprecedented circumstances, this might be the most classically comic Comic-Con we've had in 10 years,
Hmm.
probably. So for that, it could be interesting. Like there might be the possibility this might precipitate a dynamic shift, which I think you and I have both been hoping for, which is that Comic-Con moves away from being just yet another entertainment, like, big studio entertainment expo, and moves back towards being about comics and fandom. And maybe this happens. Maybe as a result of this year, the major studios decide that it's not worth the cost to go to Comic-Con, and maybe the tone shifts. That's the optimist in me that hopes that maybe this changes that. We'll see if that actually proves true or not next year, if it even happens.
So what is there's an event that happens in LA every year. Is it Pele Fest? Is that what I'm thinking of?
Paley Fest?
Yeah. I can see that absorbing the Hollywood aspect of Comic-Con, where you just have a week in LA where you have people announcing new projects, and then just basically being a week of Hall H,
Yeah.
where they'll do it in the Dolby Theater.
I think I think what might keep the studios at Comic-Con is, we only look at it as from the perspective of people who attend as fans. But it also becomes its own form of like a Cannes or a Telluride or a Sundance, and like deals and shit happen there too. Like I've talked to friends that attend from a business perspective, and the one nice thing is, it's also an opportunity to like get on people's calendars. It's like if you work for a studio or one of the major streaming platforms, and you're trying to talk to a creative, either they don't live in LA, or it all becomes an excuse for everyone to like be in town. You're like, hey, like I'm in town too. We've been trying to find time together. Like, hey, we're here. Let's go grab drinks. I think it becomes like a social business hub, and that's part of the reason it's become so big and so popular. Everyone keeps going. So that maybe that aspect is something we've overlooked, and that'll keep it
Because
going.
I don't remember if I brought this up on the podcast, but I've brought this up to you. I have a friend that works as an editor for WB, and he mainly does all of the CW like commercials and bumpers and fillers and stuff like that. When he's at Comic-Con, he's working 14-hour days the entire con, because basically what he does is this is the only time every CW cast member is in the same spot.
Yep, that makes sense.
And so he basically does these like 20-minute, all of the like brooding, over the shoulder, like interstitials you see when you're watching CW, they're all filmed at Comic-Con at the same time.
Yeah.
So he'll do like a 20-minute with each person. And it's basically, the celebrity version of like yearbook photos.
Oh God, I hope they write little messages to each other as well.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. But for now, I think that covers news. Should we move on to some Static Shock here?
Yeah.
All right. So, first episode this week is Out of Africa, which sees our good old friend Anansi the Spider return, this time in Dakota. And what's happening this week is that Osabo, who we remember was the Jaguar man, right?
Mm-hmm.
He brings along with him Onini.
But he has stripes. How is he a Jaguar?
I know. How is he a Jaguar? I've wondered that myself. He brings along Onini the Python and Mumbaro the Hornet. They come to Dakota in pursuit of an ancient Ashanti artifact, the Golden Spider, which is the source of Anansi the Spider's powers. The Golden Spider ends up in Sharon's hands, so Static reteams with Anansi to save Sharon, recover the spider, and stop Osabo from stealing Anansi's powers. It's a pretty good setup, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. So it goes over, I forgot that it went over the exact myth, but we talked about the myth back on the last Africa episode, where we meet Mboro and Onini. And we actually have like a great little animated segment where we get to see the origin of Anansi and his powers.
Yeah, it kind of runs through the whole myth. So the idea here is that I wrote all this down as much as I possibly can. But there exists this artifact, the Golden Spider, which, as I said, is the source of Anansi's powers. And so basically what is Anansi wanted to be able to have the power of storytelling. And so he made a deal with the Sky King to exchange 3 evildoers for that power. And so Anansi traded Asabo, Anini, and Umbaro, and in exchange got the power of storytelling, but specifically the power of illusion. And so his powers reside inside the golden spider. And it's a little bit unclear how then that works with Anansi, because the spider has been lost for hundreds or maybe like 1,000 years or something like that.
Yeah, it's been lost for 1,000 years.
Yeah, and it was rediscovered by the same professor, Professor Anoki, who was in the last episode. And he was intending to give it to Anansi so that Anansi could protect access to his own power. So I don't know how... They don't really say how Anansi's powers are passed down from generation to generation. We just know that they are.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
Why didn't he just give it to him in Africa?
That also would have made a lot more sense.
Why did
wouldn't
they
it?
both have to fly to Dakota?
I mean, I was going to try and find some sort of weird in-universe justification for it. No, it would have made way more sense to just give it to him there. I mean, I guess maybe he was like, oh, if I go to Dakota, then I can get away from the bad guys who want to steal it, but they just followed anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it was just a fun excuse to bring those characters back. I love seeing Anansi again. The other villains, though, are horrifying to look at.
Umboro is so unsettling, especially when he's wearing a seatbelt in the helicopter, even though he can also fly. He's so uncomfortable to look at. It's weird seeing a Hornet like sit down.
Yeah, it's weird seeing him like sit down and like just like tilt his head and have a normal conversation while being like this grotesque giant green Hornet.
Yeah.
I mean, his
who
power...
also Static just straight up murders.
What does he do to him again?
He squishes him. He
drops right.
He drops like a giant piece of technology on him.
Oh, that's...
like a giant server.
I mean, Static clearly learned some lessons from his time with Terry in the future, that it's fine to just murder your villains.
Yeah. There's no repercussions. That's what you learn.
I mean, like, Umbaro's powers are kind of cool because he can basically just like split himself off into a shitload of little mini Hornets and then fly around the city. And
let's not say mini Hornets. Let's say normal sized Hornets.
even smaller Hornets. I don't know, like that part's kind of cool, but he is really disgusting looking. And then Onini is just disturbing. He basically looks like a spliced character from Batman Beyond, but instead of having hands, he has snakes.
Two more snakes. Two more snakes.
It's just really horrifying to look at.
Yeah. Like, Asoba, I didn't realize how normal he was, and he needs to, like, understand how lucky he got being the Jaguar.
Yeah. Because he's basically just like a big guy with stripes and a Jaguar face. Yeah.
You can get around with that.
Yeah. And
you can still pick up stuff with that.
Yeah. You can pick up people if you wanted to. He's, handsome for a cat man if you're into that sort of thing. If you're...
Yeah, I mean, he can still go to FurryCon and just be totally fine.
But yeah, he's lucky because the other guys are particularly disturbing looking. Yeah. But it's also kind of fun because Sharon gets a little bit more to do this time around.
Yeah, and we have
our
first, I want to say our first weird interaction where she has a scene with Richie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the first time, and I think maybe the only time we see the two of them together.
You directly interact one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Dr. Anoki, he knows that he's about to get attacked by Asabo, and so he sneaks the golden spider into Sharon's jacket, and then she gets this thing, and initially she thinks that she can create things. It was make things happen. So she just thinks oh my god, I can just do the dishes, or I can clean up this car, not realizing that they're all illusions, and they immediately go away. But she's so baffled by it that the only person she knows to go to get help is Richie, which is a fun little moment because he's like, Virgil's not here.
Yeah, what do you want?
What do you want?
Here's my other problem with this situation is the villains learn that Sharon has it, and so they go and they break into Richie's place. There's a full scene that happens before Richie calls Virgil. It's like, oh yeah, hey, your sister's been kidnapped.
Yeah, he takes a sweet time.
Precedence to hey, a very important person to you is kidnapped. And remember that whole secret identity thing is to make sure this doesn't happen. You should probably care about this a little more than you are.
We should probably get on this right away.
Yeah. I understand that this guy that you met once in Africa is also kind of important. But your sister is kidnapped.
Yeah, it's interesting too because Static kind of takes a back seat for a lot of this story. Like a lot of it does actually focus on Sharon, which is nice. Like it's good to see her get a little bit more screen time. I feel like this is also the only time where she comes off as irresponsible.
Yeah, I feel like this was a story arc meant for Static, and like we'll
Yeah,
just repurpose it
it
because she's also a teenager. We forget that.
yeah, because she's so responsible. I mean, like we've seen episodes where she's off working at the community center, like to help kids and stuff like that. Like she always is the more responsible one. She's always the one giving Virgil shit from not being on top of his stuff. And it's weird that an episode that revolves around her primary character arc is about not doing the dishes.
But also understandable, very relatable.
I mean, relatable, but also maybe a little bit insulting. Like we've talked before about how this show, if it has one major flaw, is that it doesn't often do its female characters justice. And maybe in a Sharon-centric episode, they should have given her more to do than neglect her dishes.
But I mean that I don't see that as like a female thing. That's just like the generic teen trope. It's dishes and trash. Like you didn't take the trash out.
Yeah, I know. It just to me felt a little childish and superficial for a character that otherwise is not either of those things very often. And the
Yeah.
fact that the whole episode ends on the button of
Her being in trouble for
Pops
not doing the
calling
dishes,
her to
yeah.
yell at her for still not having done the dishes. Like I did like that when Static sees that, he just like sneakily like smiles off on the side, like, yes, no dishes for me.
What I would have loved is if she has like she remembers like everything kind of clicks for her. She's like, oh no, the dishes.
Yeah.
And then she gets the call and it's her dad being like, oh wow, Sharon, like you did a great job cleaning up the kitchen.
Mhm.
And you realize that Anansi like continued the illusion for her.
Oh, that would have been nice.
So she can go and clean up her mess.
Go into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because otherwise it focuses a lot on her, and obviously like gets kidnapped at one point, and so they have to go and rescue her. And that's when she realizes that like all of her powers are just illusions. And I actually quite liked that scene when like Asabo is not attacking her per se, but like intimidating her, and everything she throws at him to stop him doesn't work because he just walks through like the cage that she builds because he knows it's an illusion and she doesn't.
Yeah.
Which I feel like wouldn't that also undermine Anansi's powers in general? Like if everyone knows that it's an illusion, would he be really ineffective as a crime fighter?
I mean, I think it causes enough hesitation because when there's 4 Anansis, you know that 3 of them are fake, but you also know one of them could be real.
Yeah.
And so you don't know which one it is. So you still have to kind of be on your guard.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess his illusions are a little more sophisticated than
And
Sharon's.
and he's been doing this a while. He can kind of integrate the illusion into the environment a little more.
Yeah. Because there's no like major villainous plot here other than just to steal the powers. That's just kind of it.
Right.
But I don't know, it basically works though. Like it's fun to see Static and Anansi get to hang out again. I love that they still do the thing where he just clings the bottom of his disc as they're flying around town.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that Anansi asked him to break into the museum, and Virgil's like, I guess I can.
Oh, my favorite interaction with the 2 of them is when they go into the hospital and
Yes.
he turns Virgil into a doctor. He's like, you have no idea how happy you just made my dad.
Exactly. I made a note about that too. I thought that was like the best line in the whole episode. Because it does just go to show, like, at the end of the day, like, Virgil is still, like, a teenager, and he's still going to make the quips and have fun with it. Like, I didn't think this was quite as strong as Static in Africa. Like, I don't think it had that sort of, positive messaging that Static in Africa did. The idea of, like, finally seeing yourself in another hero. But this is a pretty decent, fun follow-up to that story.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, is there anything more you would have wanted to see out of this episode?
Rubber Band Man.
Okay, fair. I mean, I think that's just your go-to answer for most of the time, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate the scene between her and Richie. I just feel like it's weird seeing the two of them react, and I feel like Sharon would have gone to someone else first.
Yeah, probably.
Uh, and like if they didn't have the dishes, I could see her going to Pops and kind of
Yeah,
asking these like heritage questions.
yeah. Actually, you raise a good point. Like, it does seem strange that she wouldn't go to Adam slash our bad man for help, but I think the idea is that what they're still dating, but he's just not there at the moment. Like,
Yeah,
because I was actually thinking about this. I don't think we've seen Rubber Band Man um, yet in the new style. I think the only time he's appeared was in the episodes that were produced for season 2.
yes, and also let's not forget that he's also a famous musician
Oh,
on
that's
top of
true.
being a superhero.
Okay, that's
So
true.
like they have an easy ride out of like, yeah, I was touring the world
Yeah.
with my 4-note beat.
Oh, Rubber Band Man, the DCU's greatest hero.
Yes,
But maybe not his best musician. I think that has to go to Little Romeo.
I mean obviously.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, I don't know if there's much more they could have done. It's fine. It's a
Mhm.
fine follow up story, but I think sometimes you and I expect these to be amazing episodes because we have been getting a pretty decent streak of good ones. But, it's totally okay for them to just have okay episodes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Of the two, I thought Fallen Hero was better.
Oh yeah, this is a great story.
Yeah. So you ready to move on to Fallen Hero? You say?
Let's do it. Let's get
All
some
right.
Green Lantern. Let's do the oath.
Yes. I mean, I think that's what you're most excited about, no matter what, right? Is you're just here
Always.
for the oath. You got it. Don't worry, Cameron. No, this is a pretty good one. So this sees, to everyone's surprise, Green Lantern going on a crime spree, and that completely shatters Virgil's faith in one of his major heroes. But we come to learn that Sinestro has stolen the Green Lantern's lantern and is impersonating GL in order to destroy his reputation. It's a pretty good setup. It has some weird logic holes in it that kind of throw me off a little bit.
Yeah, like where are the other Green Lanterns?
Where are the other Green Lanterns? Also, number one being, isn't GL's costume a construct?
Yes.
Yeah. So if his power, I guess his costume is ripped because he isn't putting the energy into repairing it.
Yes, and he's just naked underneath.
I mean, he could just let it go then, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think they had to visually distinguish him because we get when Sinestro's running around as Green Lantern, he's in like crisp, clean Green Lantern form, and then when John Stewart, the real Green Lantern, shows up, he's got like some serious like multi-day stubble going on. His costume's all ripped and torn. He's wearing a trench coat. He's like hopping off and on trains trying to save his battery.
So here, actually, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
As related to Mustache Gate.
Okay.
So we see when GL gets his lantern back at the end of the episode, he powers himself up. The suit cleans itself up.
Yeah.
But he also is clean shaven.
Yes.
Is the clean shavenness just an illusion, and he actually is always stubbly?
Oh.
But using his powers to make it look like he gives himself a new chin.
I like that idea. I think he has found a way to have like as part of the like the power up move. There's like very minuscule razor blades that come through and perfectly shave his face. Because as we'll recall, GL in both his major looks, so in his Justice League look and his JLU look, has excellent hair, both facial and otherwise.
Yes.
Right? It's like, so in Justice League, he's got like the total like marine, like cropped cut, clean shaven. And by the time we get to JLU, he's a little more loose and free. He's going for the bald goatee look, both of which are excellent. If I'm going to pick one, I think I'm going bald goatee
It's
look.
pre-relationship, post-relationship looks.
Exactly, yeah. So I think he's found a way to like perfectly trim his hair and facial hair with the constructs themselves. And like to the point now where he doesn't even have to like think about a razor and shave it. Like it just does it for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The man has expert hair.
I would say that ring, endless possibilities.
Yes. And that's just how good he is.
Yeah.
He's way past the point of like, creating like a dump truck to dump
Do you
rubble on
think
people.
that's why Guy Gardner's haircut is always so bad? Is he's trying to do like what Jon Stewart can do?
He wants to be at that level, but the only thing he can come up with is he can create a bowl that goes over his head.
Yeah.
He just trims around it.
Poor guy. That's why he's always so angry.
Because he just can't get it right. Yeah, I think we've discovered the crux of all of Guy Gardner's pain is he can't make proper hair trimming constructs.
Oh man, I get it.
Yeah.
As someone who hasn't had a haircut in a long time, I get it.
I know. We're all struggling here. No, but it's great. I love that they didn't do the moment where like GL is facing a perfect mirror version of himself and they have to do the whole like, no, you're the bad guy. No, you're the bad guy. I love they skip that entirely. Man. Yeah. I love they skip that entirely. I love that when Green Lantern starts out Sinestro starts out his crime spree as Green Lantern, that he's clearly robbing Fort Knox, and it is absolutely like the Fort Knox of Goldfinger. It is like perfect recreation of that Fort Knox, which I was very, very happy to see. Like, I don't know, I felt like Sinestro's crimes were pretty mediocre, all things considered.
I mean, I think he had to. You can't go straight from like good guy to doomsday device, because then I think too many people are like, oh, he's being brainwashed, someone's controlling him. Like you can't see a hero go from 100 to negative 100 that fast.
From hero to zero?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the thing. Sinestro, I'm pretty sure, has no qualms about killing people, right? It's certainly implied that he's killed other Green Lanterns, considering that he's got a bunch of rings on a necklace.
Yes.
So wouldn't the
we don't know they're dead. He can just maybe take the finger off.
Okay, so he's just going around chopping off fingers. I feel like he wouldn't really hold back. I get this is a kid's show, but wouldn't it make the most sense for him to just go straight up murder somebody?
Again, I feel like that's too extreme. You have to ease them into criminality.
Also,
and the easiest way to do that is robbing banks.
I normally I would agree with you, but you'll remember the Green Lantern focused episode of Justice League with the Manhunters, where they frame Jon Stewart by having him destroy an entire planet.
Yes.
So their means of ruining his reputation was
but that's
genocide.
Galactic reputation. That's not earthly reputation. No one on Earth give a fuck about him blowing up another planet.
I mean, look, I can't disagree with the idea that if Green Lantern were to destroy another planet, people on Earth would not care.
Not at all.
No. If anything has...
Honestly, they would probably cheer. Like, if we made a rocket that blew up, like, Uranus...
Yeah.
There would be cheers.
I mean, for the jokes alone.
We're so powerful, we can do anything.
Yeah. Just for the jokes alone, people would cheer, obviously.
Yeah.
But, okay, fine. Actually, you know what? Hang on, Cameron. You're absolutely right. I'm looking at this from a very humanistic perspective of the best way to try to like ruin someone's reputation.
No, I'm looking at it from an American perspective.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I think, oh, you ruin someone's reputation by having them commit genocide. No. I'm not thinking like an American you are. The best way to ruin someone's reputation is to have them
steal gold. Like blocks of gold.
Exactly. Commit capitalist focused crimes, which is stealing gold and stealing microchips.
Yes.
The only way,
American way.
Yeah, the only way to truly ruin someone's reputation is to have them commit crimes against the almighty economy.
Because we've seen in our political system, every other crime doesn't matter anymore.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, you can get away with anything, but
Literally
God,
anything.
Yeah, if you steal money from people who already have it, fuck.
Not even fucking Lex Luthor could get away with all this shit. Okay, back on top, back on track.
No, but you're absolutely right. Okay, fine. They did pick the best possible crimes for him to commit. The one other thing I really liked that this episode did was it showed what happens if someone with a Green Lantern ring doesn't hold back on their powers.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, Static and Gear think that it's the real Green Lantern who's going out and committing these crimes, and they're horrified. And Static in particular is really heartbroken because his idol has like turned evil. They go to fight Sinestro as Green Lantern, and Sinestro, like, he's not straight up murdering them, but he does not pull back his punches. I think in particular there's that moment when he like, fires energy blast from his ring at Gear and like just shreds Gear's gear.
Yeah. But we also know that, I mean, Sinestro, he was an Alpha Core, right? Wasn't he an Alpha member before he turned Sinestro?
I don't know if that concept exists in the DCAU.
Well, yeah, but just in comic Sinestro, I guess.
But yes, he's a particularly powerful Green Lantern.
Yeah. So when he gets that power again, I'm sure, like, yeah, he's definitely on the stronger side of the Lantern members.
Because do the different lanterns, and I may regret asking this question, do the different lanterns have different levels of power? Like, is the green ring considered the most powerful of the lantern colors?
It I want to say no. I think red is probably considered the most powerful, but it's all based on emotion.
Right. It's like the power is the same, right? They all create constructs. It's just which emotion drives the power, right?
Blue and violet are slightly, so blue's power is hope, and their ring is kind of okay on their own, but their power comes from like aiding the Green Lanterns.
Okay.
And violet is the same way. They take their power for like they kind of combine emotions to make other people stronger.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
But the other ones are based off of feeding off of emotions. So like yellow is fear, red is anger, orange is greed.
Yep, avarice.
Ooh. Yeah, so I guess
Larfleeze.
that... What?
Larfleeze.
Larfleeze?
Larfleeze is the singular Orange Lantern user.
Oh, that's right.
He's so greedy, he killed every other Orange Lantern.
Isn't he like a big cat or something?
It's kind of just like a ball of mush.
Oh.
The cat you're thinking of is the Red Lantern, who had the similar backstory as that dog from Jurassic Park.
What, he was left behind?
Yes.
Really?
Oh, no. Sorry. The cat watched their owners die, and it was like a stray cat for a while, and the Red Lantern ring found it, and he went and murdered the people who murdered his owners.
Okay, yeah, that is definitely not the plot of Jurassic Park, where Seymour, out of loyalty, keeps waiting and waiting and waiting for Fry to return.
I know.
It never does.
Hachi, is that the dog that was based off of?
What?
It's based off a real story.
Oh, yeah. I forget, because I think there's a few stories like that. Like, I know there's one in Edinburgh. There was a dog who belonged to, I want to say, a police officer, like a constable or something like that. And when he died, the dog just like stayed at his grave.
Yeah, I think Hachi is the Hachi is the Japanese story.
Okay, yeah, I think there's a few of them. So, but no, I mean, yeah, Sinestro definitely goes crazy with the powers, and I did. He's setting it up so that Virgil and Richie will attack the real GL when he shows up. But I'm just going to say, if you're Jon Stewart and you're trying to convince your colleagues that you're not a bad guy, maybe chasing them and shooting at them with your power ring is not the best way to go about that.
Right. Like, you have multiple ways to apprehend and defend.
Yeah.
Just play defense on this one, John.
Just play defense, or literally just like put your hands in the air, or like, I don't know, or even like take off the ring. Like,
yeah, take the ring off. But he can't, because we learned that he's naked underneath.
But he still takes the ring off.
He does.
Because he takes the ring off and puts it in Virgil's jacket at one point. So he totally can. Look, I'm definitely not going to complain about the idea of a naked Jon Stewart, but it doesn't hold up.
Virgil is underage, and then that would just be, he can't go visit playgrounds after that.
Yeah, that's true. The last thing we want is for Jon Stewart to have to register as a sex offender for totally unfair reasons. Yeah. So he could just do all kinds of things to prove, like, hey, I am not a threat. Like, one, do you see this stubble? Like, I don't even look like the other guy.
Can't grow this in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But it could have been a projection. They didn't know.
That's true. Yeah, it's all he had to do was just to, like, take off the ring or put up his hands or just be like, Static, stop. Like, I assure you, it's not me. Like, what do I need to do to prove it to you? Like, there's anything he could have done other than chasing and shooting at them.
Yes.
Just saying. Maybe the wrong way to go. But I think maybe the single most interesting this episode does is it establishes that Static can charge a Green Lantern ring.
Yeah, that's weird. If I can get into the nerdy world again,
please.
I think that would show that Static is a Blue Lantern user if he were to gain access to a lantern?
Just
Because
because.
that is what Blue Lanterns do, is they supercharge the Green Lanterns.
So basically what you're saying is that Static wouldn't be able to be a hero in his own right. He would only work as a sidekick to a Green Lantern.
No, Saintwalker is a hero.
I don't know who that is.
Saintwalker is the leader of the Blue Lanterns.
But you just said that their main thing is just to be there to support the Green Lanterns.
No, that's one of the aspects of their power.
Okay.
Is they give like a power boost.
I am going to throw it out there that I think Static could absolutely be a Green Lantern.
I think so.
Yeah, because courage is the main emotion that drives Green Lanterns, right?
Yeah, willpower. Yeah.
Willpower. Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, I'd say Static has courage, but does he have willpower? He has more willpower than Richie, certainly, who can never say no to a basket of fries. So
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it makes sense in the episode to have him charge up the ring as a way to like fight back. And I did like that setup allowed GL to then be able to overpower Sinestro by having a non-stop power source. Although I don't know why Sinestro didn't just stop to recharge ever.
I wonder if it wouldn't let him. Because he doesn't have a Green Lantern ring.
Oh, well, okay, that's interesting. You're right, because he steals the lantern and he uses it to turn his yellow ring into a green ring. But I guess we never actually see him use the oath to charge up.
Yeah, the lantern activated because John started the oath, and then Sinestro kind of came in and zapped what had been started. Oh, and so he can't kind of turn it back on now that it's off again.
That's actually a good point. You're right. He may not be able to actually withdraw the lantern from the pocket dimension. He may be limited. Also, is this the same thing he did to the other Green Lanterns?
I don't think so, because I don't think any other Green Lantern cares about their reputation as much as the Earth Green Lanterns do.
Right, yeah. Well, and John, is definitely a proud individual. I don't know, because it does seem odd that they would have that moment of Sinestro having all those lantern rings without ever explaining, like, it's not like he was on a crusade to take out all of them. In this episode, he's there to just ruin GL specifically. But then it makes it seem like he's actually out there just to take out all the Green Lanterns. I don't know. It muddles his motivation a little bit. It was kind of confusing.
I mean, he's a slow-acting villain.
That's
true.
Takes
time with each ring he takes is like a very uniquely crafted story.
He's so meticulous.
Yes.
I don't know.
It's like Joker. You can shoot Batman, sure, but what's the fun in that?
That's true. Where's the joy to be had?
You got to torture him.
Yeah. And also Sinestro does operate off of the power of fear. So It makes sense that he would go around and just intimidate people. So whenever his Green Lantern ring runs out, he can just go back to being an even more powerful Yellow Lantern.
I wonder if there's ever a storyline where Joker was mad at Scarecrow for getting the yellow ring and not him.
What?
So in the Blackest Night series, when they're fighting Black Hand, a lot of the DC characters get rings to help, or temporary rings. And so Scarecrow gets the Ring of Fear, the Sinestro Corps ring.
That makes sense.
And not Joker. And I wonder if Joker is ever like envious of that.
I mean, I feel like a lot of what the Joker does utilizes fear, but it's not his main thing the way it is with Scarecrow. Like, I feel like I could see Joker. I feel like his might be more greed, actually, if you think about it. Like, because he gets angry a lot, but when he gets angry, it's usually because he's being possessive. Like, his whole thing is that he is super possessive of many things, Batman being one of them, Harley being another one. Mm-hmm. I think that
because Orange went to Lex. I also think Joker might have been dead through this arc.
He probably was. Who the fuck knows?
Because Batman was missing. So the idea was the Yellow Lantern was supposed to go to Batman, but his body was missing, so there was no thing for the ring to go to.
Oh, okay. My God.
So if I remember correctly, Lex got orange. Mira got red.
Okay.
Because she was angry over the death of Aquaman.
Okay.
Flash got blue because that was the coolest one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Wonder Woman got Star Sapphire.
Okay.
And then who got purple? Atom? I think the Atom
Okay.
got compassion.
I mean, maybe
I
it
think
should
that's
have gone to
everyone, right?
Virgil because, one, he's a very compassionate person, and two, he loves purple.
He does.
Yeah. I don't know. Any other thoughts on this?
Let me see. Oh, the Captain Dwayne's Dakota ring.
Oh, yeah, that was fun. The
I appreciated
switcheroo.
that because they hung on. There was like a reason they kept the cereal box in frame for so long.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, and I couldn't, and I don't know if that was like the reasoning for them to bring out the Dakota ring later.
Uh-huh.
But I was curious about the origins of Dakota rings.
Oh, my God.
It's been a slow weekend.
No kidding.
We don't have to go into it, but it's not as interesting as you would think. It's basically just been the Orville company trying to make this product a thing since the 30s, and people are just like, yeah, it's fine.
What a fascinating history of the Dakota ring.
Yes, it wasn't a ring until the 60s though. It
Oh,
was a
well, hey.
Dakota disc.
That's when it
And
got
you'd
real
get like
crazy.
it'd be like a pin.
Yeah.
You'd get a pin, and then on the back it'd be the Decoder.
No, I've seen A
and that
Christmas
started with-
Story. I know.
Yeah. It started with Captain Midnight in the 50s. And there was someone else that had it in the 30s. Because 1935 was the first Decoder ring. The Decoder disc.
Well, the one in isn't the one in Christmas Story Little Orphan Annie?
Yes, that's the first one. Yes.
Yeah. God.
That was the first one.
Because, Little Orphan Annie needed a decoder ring to hide her messages from the orphanage. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how Annie works.
She sings.
That's it.
She's got animal crackers in her soup.
Yes.
You know how it goes.
That's all her messages are. Every message you decode it just says tomorrow. Like, come on. Can you come up with something more creative at this point? All right. Well, should we move on at this point?
Let's do it.
All right, so we got a few notes from friends here. Actually, speaking of Green Lantern, we got a message from the guys over at the Watchtower Database on Twitter, and they said that because we were asking about, hey, what other heroes may have existed before Soul Power. So the response was, theoretically, I think there are a few heroes before Soul Power. They reference the Thanagarians in Egypt and Spy Smasher in World War II. But now you mentioned it, Soul Power being around the 60s and having a comic book, there's no way that John Stewart wasn't inspired by him. Because as we may recall, John Stewart was a big comic book geek, and he ended up becoming Green Lantern in the late 80s, early 90s. So there's totally no way that he would have missed out on like the one other like major black superhero, especially if he was also a comic hero.
Mm-hmm.
Which that idea, even if it's not explored, is awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And I think that talks to what we were speaking about, which is like that idea of like the legacy of heroes. And even the fact that like, GL was around before people for a long time, other heroes for a long time too. But yeah, that's now headcanon for me that Soul Power came first and then he inspired Green Lantern, which I think is awesome. So, and then I actually have to do a correction moment.
Chris's correction corner.
It's Chris's correction corner, aka Lordy's Lies.
Oh, that's good. That's better.
I said we had not yet had an episode with Aqua Maria. I was wrong.
Yeah, I thought we did.
She was in the bad stretch.
Yes.
So thank you, James, for pointing it out and forcing me to acknowledge my own mistakes. So
I'll not be twisted in your lies, Lordy.
Out there spreading lies everywhere I go. And then the last one was a message from Ashley Clark, which was really emphatically telling me not to watch the Joel Schumacher Phantom of the Opera. And she even put a link out there to a video essay breaking down like why that movie is terrible. But she said that for anyone who's interested in watching a version of Phantom of the Opera, they should check out the Royal Albert Hall performance instead. So a little recommendation there for a place to go check that out. So, all right. But yeah, that's it just for some notes from friends. So in terms of back plugs, Cameron, what do you got for us this week?
I don't have a lot of new stuff I've been watching this week. I fell back into a rabbit hole I told myself I wouldn't go back to.
Video games?
And I no,
Oh.
no. Not that addiction.
Okay. Your other addiction.
My other addiction, anime.
Oh, okay.
There's a series that I love called Hunter x Hunter that has been on hiatus. It was never canceled, but it's been on hiatus for like 8 years now.
Okay.
The creator has this crazy mentality of not wanting to overwork his animators and manga artists.
Oh, how dare he?
So he'll work for like 3 months and then take like a 3-year break.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I decided to start watching Hunter x Hunter again, and it is a fantastic series. I highly recommend it for people who like want a different kind of superhero story. I really enjoy it. It's a world where if you want to basically do anything cool, you have to get a hunter's license.
Okay.
Which kind of grants you access to resources, jobs, kind of the internet in general.
So to function as a normal human being, you have to have a hunter's license, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like the financial aspect of that is a whole other kind of monstrosity. But you follow this kid named Gon, who is becoming a hunter because his dad abandoned him as a kid to be a hunter.
Okay.
And the story he got out of that is hunters must be so cool because for a dad to abandon his kid, it must be a pretty cool job.
Oh my God. That is really dark.
Yeah, the characters are like very unique kind of tropes. So you have him, his best friend is a character named Kahlua, the drink.
Yeah.
Who comes from a family of elite assassins.
Okay.
And so it's him trying to like find a way to be normal while growing up being just this. He's a 12-year-old who's murdered like hundreds and hundreds of people already.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's like him trying to find a normal life out of that. It's the two of them just kind of like taking on the world together.
Okay.
And they meet a lot of people with super unique powers. They have a really interesting magic system where you can get more powerful if you make certain restrictions to your power. No, that's not the right word. Where you have to like hit what's the fucking word I'm thinking of?
A button. A threshold.
No, kind of. It's when you I'll just stick with restriction.
Okay.
It's like there's one character named Karapika who is not very strong, but his life goal is to get revenge on these 12 people. And so he creates this ultimate power. And the reason it's so strong is he can only use the power on these 12 people. Besides that, he's basically powerless.
Okay, so like if you create
conditions, that's the word. Yeah.
Okay.
And the conditions powered by if he uses this power on anyone else, it will kill him immediately.
Oh, okay. That is clever. Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. So it is a universe where magic exists.
Yes, it's called Nin.
Okay, but also has this weird restriction on people's lives. They must be a hunter to do anything else.
Yes.
Wait. So, but if
a hunter's license is basically like going to college.
Okay.
So you can still do a lot of stuff without it, but if you want to do like anything cool,
like abandon your family,
abandon your family.
Wait, so in other words, this is a universe where a kid essentially decided that going to college must be the coolest thing ever because that it was so cool as to make his dad leave him.
Yes.
Okay.
And then accessing the power of Nin is basically like going to grad school.
This, to me, this sounds a little Hat on a Hat.
It is.
Okay.
It absolutely is.
Okay.
But I mean, it's anime, so there's got to be some kind of magic system.
I guess that's kind of true. I feel like anime is a medium by which you kind of can have like those two like major universe defining things happening simultaneously. I mean, also I say that, and I am also a huge fan of Star Wars, which is all about space travel, but also there's like wizards. So
yes.
who am I to begrudge weird genre clashing?
No, it's you kind of have to get into it a little bit to start seeing the crazy powers.
How far is into it?
There are, God, how many episodes are there? Probably 200 episodes of this show.
Okay, and how many do you have to get in before you start seeing the cool stuff?
Like 50.
Okay, all right.
There's another character that you wouldn't like named Hisoka.
Why would I not like him or her?
He's a guy.
Okay.
He's a Gambit-esque, where he kind of uses playing cards as his thing.
Mm-hmm.
They can explode, and he can use them to cut people's heads off.
Nice.
But he's so addicted to fighting powerful people that it's the only way he can be turned on. And so he has this fascination of finding powerful people, but he can't fight them immediately because he's so excited. He has to calm himself down first.
He's so hardy that he can't focus enough to actually fight them.
Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of love that. It's very specific.
And, the only weird part is that's why he doesn't kill Gon, is he sees the potential in him. So anytime he sees this 12-year-old child,
oh, God.
That's when people are like, oh, right, Hisoka does have some things he needs to work through.
Here's what he has to do. He has to come across an all-powerful therapist.
Yes.
And then maybe he'll find the focus enough to solve his problem.
Mm-hmm. But I will say, with like Hunter x Hunter and One Piece, if you want like unique superpowers,
Mm-hmm.
Japan is so much better at coming up with like plausible weird.
Yeah,
compared to the stuff you see in like Doom Patrol, which is just like weird for the sake of weird.
I do love that though. And then where is Hunter x Hunter? What's it on?
The first 4 seasons are on Netflix.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got to include these things. People can check it out for themselves. They can also go watch 50 episodes before they're satisfied.
I mean, you will be satisfied through the whole thing because it is just like genuine fun storytelling.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's usually considered one of the top animes ever. Usually behind like Full Metal Alchemist and Death Note, but it's like people love this show.
Okay. All right. I feel like you've probably mentioned it before. It sounds vaguely familiar, but no, it sounds pretty cool. Wait, so you had seen it before? Or this is your first time watching it?
Oh yeah, I've watched it once before.
Okay.
And I'm like, it's time for a rewatch.
I love that you have time to rewatch 200 episode series.
I don't have time. That's the problem. My sleep schedule is so destroyed.
Oh, Cameron.
It's fine. I'm still moving.
Yeah, make it happen.
What about you? What have you been watching, listening, reading?
Kind of the same. I'm still burning through Avatar.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
We just watched one of my favorite episodes.
Yes. We just watched the Tales of Ba Sing Se together, which was absolutely beautiful episode. Very, very heartwarming. So it's still powering through on that, which has been pretty good. So actually, this week I have to plug a couple articles that I came across that they're relatively short. But they were posted up on Twitter, and I forget by who. It may have even been by DC Universe itself. But one is Black and Proud, The Legacy of Milestone Comics by Donovan Morgan Grant, which is up on the DC Universe website. And it's a relatively short article, but it kind of highlights some of the things that Milestone really like some issues and things that Milestone tackled that other places weren't willing to do. Including like LGBT representation, like power, responsibility, vengeance, respect. Like it had a really unique take on how it approached these things and did it from a more kind of grounded, realistic perspective. And there's actually also a DC Daily Clip link in there where it's an interview with Dennis Cohen, who was one of the creatives of the show and, of the comic itself. And he talks about how the idea for the Big Bang was actually based in a real thing that happened. This idea that there was a like an activist group of sorts that was forming in Philadelphia, and the police's response was to basically just like bomb the area where they lived. So that was like the real life inspiration for the Big Bang, and obviously Dennis does a much better job explaining it than I just did now, but it's well worth watching that short little clip, just get his kind of the origins of some of the stuff, which is really cool. And then the last one was another article on DC Universe, and it was a DC Pride, The Rise and Fall of Comic Book Queer Coding by Esper Quinn, excuse me. And so it just talks about how basically due to the Comics Code Authority that a lot of characters had to be queer coded rather than actually being like outwardly gay. And it kind of acknowledges the times where that was helpful and the times where it was problematic that a lot of villains end up being heavily queer coded. And it's interesting. It's just kind of, it was cool to see some explorations of kind of the power of storytelling and some of the complexities of comics. So
Nice.
yeah, well
Yeah,
worth,
those are super fascinating.
yeah, well worth checking out. So as always, they'll be down in the show notes. But I think that does it for us this week. We made it. Got through some more Static
did it.
Shock.
Hey, Chris, proud of you.
Thank you. That's all I was looking for.
Yeah.
That's all I really wanted.
I don't say it enough, but we did it.
I'm going to go cry now. But yeah, so we'll be back next week with Army of Darkness and No Man is an Island, which, receives the return of Edwin Alva.
Yes, and I think that's another one that Butch Hartman stole, copied, used.
Was inspired by.
Butch Hartman, I love you so much.
Yes. Lest we be accused of slander, he was heavily inspired
by.
Oh, bless you, Butch Hartman. But yeah, we're back next week with some more Static Shock. Until then, if you have suggestions for things we should check out or thoughts on these episodes, you can find us at Timm Talk Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Gmail. And you can find me at Lordifer on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, and you can find my art at Cameron.Dexter. And if you want to see my face, you can find that at CamDexter_adventures.
Boom, boom, boom. Well, that does it this week. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Bye.
Superhero Static Shock.
Woo woo.
Superhero Static Shock.
Woo woo.